The time has come once again to speak as witches and wizards do. I'm Daniel and
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
we're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to season 6, episode 9. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, essentially, this is going to be a purely channeled session, I think, because neither of us know what we're here to do, but there's always something. So,
Right. So what I'm getting right off the bat is that 2 more months to this year. November 1st. We're recording this on November 1st. It's going to be out like next weekend, so on the 7th or whatever, or a little past that. But anyway, we're recording on the first day of November. And what I'm getting is, all right, really, really get serious here. Really blossom. Really let yourself blossom. Let yourself out of your cage. Whatever metaphor you want to use for quit constraining yourself.
mhm. Get out of your own way. How about
Mm.
that?
Yeah. Now is the time to shine.
hmm I've been doing a lot of work with people lately, actually, on the hidden stories that they
Right.
have. They don't realize they've got them.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to do a little digging, and then there's like, oh, well, I can't do that because, or
Right.
that doesn't work because, da da da. And sometimes you hear it, and it's like, that doesn't really make sense. It doesn't fit with what I know of this person. So it needs looking at. And if you have any of those stories for yourself, if you notice them, then make a note and go back and look at that later. Like, where
Mm.
did that come from? Whose voice is it? Who's telling you that you can't, or it's not for you, or whatever the thing is? Um, and who made you doubt yourself?
Right.
Lack of self-trust is one of the most limiting difficulties a person can have, and it typically comes from growing up being second guessed
Right.
and criticized with oh, is that it? Is that all you can do? Can't you do better than that?
Mm.
That kind of talk. And
Right.
that person develops a lack of self-trust where they always want external validation. So that's not a magical thing per se, but it will sure as hell get
Right.
in the way of you doing anything magical if you've got that story running.
Right. Well, I'm going to share a humorous story. It's not about me directly. Well, it's not about me at all in any way, shape, or form, other than I used to listen to a podcast, and it was a pretty good podcast. And one of the hosts has been like researching UFOs for like decades. And he always claimed that he never had a UFO sighting. And like this is like decades. And then I was listening to one episode, and one of the guests was talking, and then the host suddenly stopped and goes, I did have a sighting, like early on. He
Uh-huh.
went decades never thinking he had a sighting, and then like he's in his like 60s, and all of a sudden, shit, I had one.
Maybe that was a sort of let's pretend I didn't see that because nobody believes me kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
It can happen even as you're trying to prove your point.
right.
It's
But it was
like
kind of yeah.
there's two layers going on, right? Consciously, you're trying to put this thing out there,
Mm-hmm.
and subconsciously, the part of you that runs on automatic is saying, no, 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 that's not safe. Let's not do that.
Right.
Vroom, pulls the rug from under you so that you don't do that new thing.
Yeah. Because for him, it almost became like a source of pride. He would talk about the topic and say, "But I've never had a sighting," and he would say it over and over again. And then one day, one of the guests said something, and I was like, "Shit, I had one," and it just occurred to me that I had one.
Isn't that interesting? I
Yeah.
wonder how that changed things for him.
I don't know because I stopped listening to the podcast shortly after that. I got tired of the same old stories of people coming on but no one having anything.
Oh, it's yeah, yeah. a bit like watching one of those TV shows that they say ancient mysteries,
Right.
let's explore this thing, and they never ever get an answer to anything.
Right.
And so what you just wasted like 45 minutes or something of your life watching this thing, and
Yeah.
it's completely manufactured with no answer at the end. Like, God, that was annoying.
Yeah.
Anyway, I that's my little thing. I
Yeah.
find those really irritating.
Yeah, well, that's in the end why I stopped because it's like a lot of the guests were interesting and there's interesting stories, and I learned a lot of things about people who study UFOs. Like a lot of them are musicians.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's a weird, it's weird. Like so much so that one podcast I used to listen to, um, the guy would do special episodes where he'd have like guests on and they would just like talk about music or like and they'd choose like a theme and they'd each like bring a bunch of songs to play. Like really weird songs, strange music. Maybe if Halloween, they try to find a bunch of obscure Halloween songs because that's how frequent it is. The guy was just like, "Nah, we'll talk about music."
How interesting.
Yeah,
I wonder how many people who sort of involve themselves in magic, um, or even people who are spiritual. I wonder how
yeah,
many of them are also musically inclined, because that's a certain vibration, right? It's a
yeah,
certain connection to what's around you that somebody who's not into music doesn't have.
right. I mean, and it's not just limited; like it's artists and stuff like that too, and poets and
But
pretty much
it's
everyone
that's
with a
still a
strong
link.
creative side are in this. Yeah,
Uh-huh. That creative side is still a
yeah,
link, right?
yeah.
So just a speculative question of like, I wonder, I don't know. Hadn't
I
thought of it
think,
until now.
yeah, I think part of it is because you can. I'll use this wording, but you get what I'm saying. You can look at things deeper or you can look at different possibilities. And
So
that's usually what,
broad or deep.
yeah. So you can go deeper into a subject or you can look at things and not, and you might pick up on things that other people are ignoring because it doesn't make sense or it doesn't, can't make they can't bridge because your imagination helps you bridge connections. You can, because it's basically at its, at the most mundane way of putting it, it's a modeling tool. So the more creative you are, the more you can model scenarios. So,
Hmm. Interesting thought.
and like,
Okay.
sir, so it, I guess we're going on this particular thing, but one of the issues with people who are intelligent and raised in recognition of their intelligence, they tend to get limited into what they'll allow themselves to consider.
But
Like,
what they've been told that
right,
they're good at.
yeah. So you'll get things like an opening statement might be, well, we know this is impossible, so it can't be that. It's like, well, why do you know that's not possible? How do you know it's not possible? Because you were praised for being able to regurgitate what you read in a book or. So now you can't allow yourself that leap.
And here's the funny thing about knowing what's not possible.
Right.
None of us know that. It's a complete unknown.
Right.
You only know things that you haven't seen yet or are not aware of them happening yet. Doesn't mean they haven't happened or they're not happening.
Right.
So that's an interesting statement too, and it tells you
Mhm.
immediately that that person has some serious limitations
Yeah.
that they've imposed on themselves or somebody else has put on them because we don't know that that's not possible. Anything is possible
Hmm.
by
Yeah.
definition. It might be
Yeah.
improbable, but it's got to be possible. We just don't know it yet.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, well, you don't know what, from your vantage point of what you don't know how it's possible, but it doesn't mean that there's not another perspective that can bridge that gap for you. Like, if you watch enough documentaries, you start coming across these contradictory ideas of someone will say, well, no one's ever done research into this. And then the next documentary, it's like, oh, this is my whole career was based on this. And it's like, well, hold on. You're both in the same discipline. How do you not know, the work?
Yeah, and isn't that an interesting thing about people, right? Because
Mhm.
we still figure that if somebody stands up and says, "Hey, I'm an expert and this is what I know to be true,"
Mhm.
we tend to believe them.
Yeah.
But the reality is people tend to be full of shit.
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
the
more often than not, right? So you kind
yeah,
of got to question what you're listening to as often as you can remember to do so.
yeah. Well, that's why appeal to authority is one of the logical fallacies, right, in
Right.
discussion, because it's like all you can know is what you studied. You can take for granted what other people have studied and told you if you want to, but you only know what you've done.
Right. And you can believe the things they're telling you, but do we ever question the agenda of the
Right.
person who's telling you all these things that they know
Hmm.
and their research methods and so on? In fitness, leaping back to that, I used to have a gym when I was in Malaysia. It was a little boutique gym for women. And at that time, all the knowledge that we had suggested that, you know, muscle, if you're contracting one muscle, it kind of works in a straight line, right? Because the work had generally been done using electrical impulses on cadavers. And you'd see the contraction. It's like, oh, okay, contraction, relaxation. Like, okay, yeah, we got this. Eccentric, eccentric
Hmm.
curls, etc. But when the technology advanced, which was right around that time, we started to learn something completely different. When they were able to put electrodes onto people who are still alive and check the
Hmm.
muscle impulses, we then discovered a thing called cross chains, where, if it's your left hip, then, that's going to go to your right shoulder kind of thing. It's not
Right.
in a straight line. We got this crisscross thing happening. That suddenly altered everything for the exercise world. But
Mm.
right up until the moment that new type of research was done, we knew that this other way was true. That was a fact because we were
Right.
told by all the people that know these things and stand up as experts, right? And we knew that to be true right up until the moment we knew it wasn't.
Yeah. It's kind of my issue with science presenters because because usually they'll speak in absolutes, whereas when you
Mhm.
get like the really hardcore scientists, at least in my experience, you get, well, this is what I figured out from my research. You'll have that distinction of this is what I think from my research, or this is what I suspect from my research. Whereas when someone is just discussing it as like an influencer or a presenter, you'll get these are absolutes.
Right.
We know this, or this is how that works.
And I would like to point out that when it comes to influencers, most of them know jack about anything.
Mm,
Like they seriously don't. There are one or two that may have done a little reading, but
mm,
by and large, they just run their mouths. So those guys are downright dangerous. Um, and they can speak with conviction on something that's likely not accurate. Let's put it that way, seeing as I said there aren't absolutes. But that's up to us, isn't it, to
right.
look at the person talking and instead of taking it as 100% accurate, hmm, that's likely, that's the most likely scenario that this person has come up with. And
Right.
until we know something else, that'll have to do. But that's the
Mhm.
thing, is being prepared to change with new information. So
Yes.
I have no idea where this is going on a magical perspective or a wizardry perspective, but it's what we got right now.
Well, the sense I'm getting, because we talked about last week, right? We started, even though I didn't want to cover Charlie Kirk, we talked about it. But one of the things right now I think that's very important is essentially propaganda type of stuff. And that's
Mhm.
why I think, is why it's coming up because listen, there's a lot of bullshit out there right now.
Oh, we are swimming in it, man.
Right.
Swimming in it.
And so if you want to truly be who you are in a magical practice, you have to bypass that. You
Right.
have to know how to get past that.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, you have reminded me of something I came up with like 2 days ago. I
Right.
think it was. Yes. And it's another one of those things following a conversation with somebody. But I thought, yep, I think starting December, beginning of December
Mm.
rather than January,
Right.
I'm going to start doing a year-long Lilith practice for those that want to join.
Oh,
So, yeah, and that'll have some shamanic work in it and all kinds of things. But I'm going to do that as a year-long practice. So, and I'm still putting together what that's going to look
mm,
like, and I doubt that I will have a comprehensive, like, we'll do this, then we'll do that, because we'll go with it the way we go with it.
right.
But I know I have a year's worth, at
Yeah.
least. So, nice deep dive into Lilith.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that came up just a couple of days ago, and there's all sorts of things that are shifting and changing right now for me, but I'm noticing it's also for other people.
Yeah.
So that's you got to be careful what you allow to influence you.
Yes.
So that's what podcasts you're listening
Mm,
to. Whose opinion are you taking as being a fact? Are you still doing that? Because for goodness sakes, please stop. Like, just think about it, look at it, read a little, Google it. Even that can give you some different ideas. And then also be aware that Google tends to be all AI stuff. So, watch out for
yeah.
that too.
This was actually a big part of my Halloween was discussing these topics and like what to look for as authentic information. And I'm like, you're told what you need to know. And so you have to be able to discern what's the story and what's the actual information.
Yes. And I think too, legitimate sources, basically, if somebody's running their mouth
Mm,
and they don't have anything to back up what they're saying, that's probably not an opinion you need to pay too much attention to, except maybe there's something there for you to go and look at if it feels interesting. Like, is there anything to that comment? Yes or no?
mm,
I actually had, like on the Tylenol debacle, which
right,
now interestingly has been backtracked on, right? Too late
right,
now, it's going to sue the pants off you. But anyway, that whole Tylenol thing, I actually had a doctor that I know, a
right.
medical doctor,
Hmm.
say to me, well, don't be so quick to dismiss that. Maybe we should look into Tylenol. And my jaw hit the floor because I've known this person for 15 years and I
Right.
did not expect to hear what I considered to be utter twaddle coming out of her mouth. Like, just really?
Mm,
Tylenol? Oh my God. So that to say that that was a medical thing and this is a medical person
right.
talking, and I couldn't believe that she hadn't examined where that whole thing came from, or even looked at the fact
Yeah.
that we're talking a specific brand rather than a generic substance.
Right.
And no research was cited, etc., etc. But that was a medical person saying it. So when you go see your doctor and you ask them their opinion on something, you may still want to look it up. You know what I'm saying? You may still
Well,
just want to double check that.
yeah.
Apparently,
One
they're
day,
fallible too.
yeah. One day I'm going to look up the actual name of the book and the author, but there was a doctor who wrote a book, and it was basically about when you go to your doctor, here's the things, kind of things you have to look for, because your doctor went to school for a long time and was probably heaped a lot of praise, and there's probably a lot of pressure to be correct. So sometimes they're just going to tell you something, and they're probably not right, and they know
Mhm.
they're not right, but they're saving face with
Yeah, and it'll
things he
shut you
had
up
said.
for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's a
So
cultural thing too,
yeah.
right? Depending on the culture that you're in.
Mhm.
Like when I lived in Asia, for
Mhm.
example, pick a country, honestly, I lived in three of them, and each one of them had the same thread of ask them a question and they will say yes, even when the answer is no. Do you know where such and such is? Yes. Where is it? Go that way. Like, like they don't know, but they can't tell you no. So if you go to a medical person there is an element of that because it's so strongly cultural.
Right.
And then you've also got the mansplaining thing, right?
Mhm.
I mean, guys who are into mansplaining, they will explain a fucking bee's wings to you, and they've never looked at them, right? But they can't not know. And I think that's an issue. It's not actually, I was going to say it's not only men, but yeah, it is for mansplaining. That is a particularly male thing to do.
Mm.
And, and some women will also not want to
Elaborate.
be, they may take it and run with it, right?
Yeah.
We all have our little foibles, and
Right.
that's so if we have to bear that in mind, right?
Mm.
Like when a person's telling it to you, how much do you trust their judgment? And another thing I would say
Yeah.
is when you're looking at praise and criticism,
Hmm.
if you wouldn't believe the praise from a person, don't listen to the criticism,
Right. Yeah.
right? If you distrust them when they praise you, for God's sakes, don't listen to the criticism because, that's not a good source for you.
Right.
And you never learn anything from haters.
Fair enough. Well, I'll say this. So, I mean, I still do this, but when I was younger, because I was always eager to learn things, right? And I was eager to do things the correct way. So if someone, even if it was just to kind of, to use the expression, to take a piss, like I would take what they say seriously, and then I would see, okay, so you're saying I'm stupid. So okay, so now I got to check out what is it that I'm doing that makes me look stupid or makes me stupid, right? And I would check it out. And if I found there was nothing, then that person's opinion meant nothing to me after, because I'm like, they were just talking to talk, so I can't use them as a reference to try to improve myself. And so therefore anything they tell me kind of starts to lose its impact.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I was growing up. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take you seriously, and then I'll check it, and it's like, oh, never mind. Okay, now I know to take you with a grain of salt. And then next person, oh, okay. So I was hard to insult as a kid. It wasn't impossible, but I was difficult because it was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I'll take your word for it. I'll check it out, see if I can improve somehow. And then when there was nothing to improve, it was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, that's one approach.
Yeah.
I also look at if somebody's telling you you're
Mm,
stupid, well, first of all, are you? So yes,
mm,
check into that. But the other thing is, and this is very important very early on,
right.
what's the motivation for telling you
Yeah.
that? Some of the kids that I work with, the older
Mm,
ones, I have them creating signs at home to
right.
put on the wall, put on the fridge, wherever.
Mm,
It's one or two kids' cases, put it in several places to remind them.
yeah.
And this is the word think written horizontally. And then, is it truthful? Is
Right.
it inspirational? TH. No, is it truthful, helpful, inspirational,
Mm,
necessary, kind?
right.
And if what you're about to say is none of those things, or is yes to some but not
Mm,
all, don't say it, right? So you can be truthful, but if it's not kind, shut up. And
right.
if you're not truthful, but it's kind, also don't say it, right? So this is for kids with autism. This is how I help them
Right.
develop a compass for, yes, I can say that. No, I shouldn't say that.
Mm, yeah. That's a good idea because, like, there's that whole thing where people go, "Well, I'm just being honest," and it's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. You're
You
being a
are being an
bastard.
asshole because you could have said that another way.
Right. And one of my pet peeves,
Mm,
just came up to me, is when somebody says, no offense,
right.
but da 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 da
Get
da.
ready to be offended. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, if you say that, it's a bit like when you watch a game of American football. When
Mm,
there's a tackle and somebody's done something they
mm,
shouldn't, like grabbed a face mask, they will typically throw their hands up in the air like,
mm.
I didn't do it. And you know
Right.
full
Yeah.
well they did it because they just threw their hands up in the air.
Yeah. That was the
It's
giveaway.
exactly the same. It's exactly the same with no offense, but I don't mean to be mean, but I'm not trying to upset you, but
Mm,
yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. You just gave everybody a heads up.
yeah.
So, you just got your 15-yard penalty right off the bat.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot to consider when people give you information.
There is.
Motivation, history of sharing information, Is the information verifiable? All the wonderful things that,
Does it make sense?
yeah,
That's kind of a good one as well. Like just a basic filter. It's like the big colander, right? The first shake, does it make sense?
yeah,
And if it really doesn't, or if it's not at all in line with your life experience, then make like the Buddha and consider it. And if it doesn't fit with your life experience, then maybe it's not for you right now. Put it to one
right,
side.
yeah. I'll offer this up because it goes with that. So my mother was watching a video yesterday, and the claim made by the guest on this show was that so the reason Mary gave a virgin birth was because it's a tradition in her family line where they can get pregnant without sex. It's an old technique used going all the way back to what was Abraham's wife's name again?
Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah. Sarah used the same technique when she couldn't give birth, and then he had the child with the slave, and then she miraculously had a child. Well, the lady was claiming that this is a an old a technique used, and it's handed down through the line. And so, because John the Baptist apparently was born in the same way as Jesus was, where he was also, and I'm like, and my mom was asking me, like, is that a real thing? And I'm like, I go first, I says, what sense does that make? I go, we're a sexually dichotomous species, you know. So can a woman get pregnant without, you know, can you have can you start the whole mitosis and stuff like that without getting a small gamete and just using a large gamete, right? Like, so can you just have an egg and then the egg just starts splits and starts reproducing on its own without any kind of, you know, input?
Bloody hell. Can you imagine how many kids that beef people were doing that? Oh my
Right.
Lord.
So I'm like, the whole thing, does that even make sense to begin with? Like, like I'm sure, like, there's probably some way. Like, I mean, we do have techniques of cloning, but it usually takes a fertilized egg from a species of some kind, and then you put the DNA in.
So my thoughts on this one is that when somebody's so heavily focused on,
Right,
you know, non-sexual pregnancy and then
right.
no sexual contact, they're seriously repressed and they've got some issues because why would that make it a better thing?
Well, and that's my thing, right? Because mythology and folklore has this thing where they're afraid of normal births. Like gods will spring
And
out of
and,
caves.
and
Zeus's
sexual
skull is the
contact.
weirdest thing I've heard, one of the weirder things, and but
One of the
anything other
most
than people had sex and they came out of the canal.
Well, one of the
Yeah.
most natural things, natural urges ever on this
Right,
planet is sex and reproduction. I
right.
mean, pick a species, right? Like that's the most fundamental thing. So how interesting is it that various people generally with this idea of
Mm,
control and what have you need to make that a bad thing and to
yeah,
elevate the idea that you could sort of have a baby without sex. How weird is
right.
that?
And that's
And
yeah,
there's a further point, which is
yeah.
if that were true, which it clearly isn't, but if that was true, then doesn't that mean that women are even more strong
Mm,
and don't need men at all?
right.
Because if women can have babies without men, then I don't know. I'm running out of ideas. What are you all here for? Because, repressing women is getting kind of old and tired. So what else is it going to be, right? Isn't there
Mm.
this sort of need for both in order to have balance in the universe?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, my first reaction whenever someone talks about an exceptional birth like that, I'm always like, why do you feel the need to add that? What makes this person that much more special that they didn't come through normal means? Like, why? It's like, so you obviously don't think whatever that person has to share is important enough. So now you have to do something to bring in. And like the whole idea of the virgin birth to begin with is only in one of I think it's only, who is it? Whoever dealt with the Greeks, I think. Whoever wrote their letters specifically to bring in the Greeks is the only one who really addresses the virgin birth. All the rest of the apostles don't address it, as far as I know.
And there's an interesting thing about the language of Hebrew.
Right.
The letter Dalet
Hmm.
looks a bit like an upside down L, if you will. Yeah,
Right.
that'll do. The letter Resh also looks like an upside down
Mm.
L, but it's a little shorter at the
Okay.
top. So when you're looking at handwriting,
Hmm.
you could mix your Dalet and your Resh quite
Right.
easily, particularly if you're not as familiar with Hebrew as a native Hebrew writer
Right.
would be, right?
Hmm.
So perhaps you're working in the Greek language, but you know enough Hebrew to translate. What the word, which escapes me at the moment, but depending on whether you put a Dalet or a Resh, you either have the Virgin Mary or the
Hmm.
young woman Mary.
Right. Yeah.
So one letter can make the difference in the translation. Now, if you're looking at that and you can go either way with it, then it's a lot more interesting and exciting if you go with the virgin birth, right?
Yeah. Well, you say that, and one of the reasons why I kind of want to call bullshit on the story was because the woman presenting this said, "Well, Joseph was older than Mary, and he didn't really feel comfortable with being with a younger woman." And I'm like,
Right, that happens a lot.
"Uh-huh."
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm not saying there's no one like that in the world, but I'm saying that throws kind of a twist into the story that's making it harder to believe. You have a willing young woman, and an older guy, and he's going to say no, and it's already like ordained by God. Okay, yeah, whatever.
But also,
Yeah.
as with much of history, I'm not sure how much women were actually asked their opinion on the subject. And that
Right.
is an ongoing problem, right? So, like, did she even have any choice in the matter? There's so many questions. But it's an attempt to elevate a teacher beyond the status that anyone else can attain. And, you know, how interesting is that they need to do that? I mean, the Buddha was, well, there are some stories that of Buddha being born in an extraordinary way, and there are
Right.
others that say, no, no, it was straight up regular, and he was married and he had a kid, and he left the wife and left the kid to go and do his, I'm gonna
Right.
search for the meaning of life, the universe, and everything trip.
Mm.
And you could look at just those facts and say, well, hey, that's not right.
Mm.
No, I wouldn't argue differently, but it was a choice.
Yeah, and I find it kind of weird. This kind of came to me when you were talking, and we had talked about this on the podcast before, because I had said, using the title wizard or even any kind of magical using thing, like I have a lot of the folklore signs. I have birth defects. I'm not a full head of red hair, but like I had like red in my, through my facial hair, and you name it, I had those signs. But they're all like, but a lot of times in folklore, it's actually the less perfect you were was more your signs of, the less elevated you were was more the sign of your potential magic.
Ah, yes, but then magic was not considered to be a good thing
Yeah,
in so many cases because it's threatening, right? So
right.
if anybody doesn't fit the norm in very heavy air
Mm,
quotes, then you other them. And how do
right.
you other them? I yesterday while I had a look at Facebook and somebody was posting about Christie puppy
Mm.
shooting gnome, the
Yes.
ice
Yeah.
the ice queen,
Hmm.
as I called her. And they said that she was a witch because, she's doing
Right.
so many evil things. And I was mad. Like, how dare you? Bloody hellfire. Don't
Mm.
we have enough problems without lumping people
Right.
like her into our category so that
Yeah.
it's another one of those stereotypical things, right? This person's really, really bad. So
Yeah.
you gotta put them in the category of they're a witch. She
Hmm.
doesn't have any marks or tells
Hmm.
or whatever's to suggest any such thing. She's not magical. She's extremely mundane,
Right.
downright pedestrian. But they called her a witch, and I was pretty affronted. I gotta
Mm.
say, I was like, no, 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 you are not being helpful. This is not okay.
Yeah.
You can call her pretty much anything you want, other than that, as far as I'm concerned. But ooh.
Yeah. But one of the reasons why I brought it up is that apparently, if I'm to believe this article I read, women were actually seeking men, especially in this case, people with dwarfism, because in that culture they were known to be magical. So they wanted magical children, so they would marry people with dwarfism.
Yay for the dwarfs.
Yeah,
Snow White was clearly looking for some magic then.
yeah. But what I mean is like, so
So that was
having the
polyamory, was it?
yeah. So these marks, I get people were actually they weren't using them negatively. They were actually it was a sign of recognizing someone with potential. But I think it's the idea that once you basically become an outsider for whatever reason, then you know things other people don't know, and then it becomes like a status symbol. It's
Well,
not
it's
everywhere,
literally
obviously, but
something unknown can be attributed to you.
right.
And typically, though, people are afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
So, what you often find, and if you look at Jesus, who
Mm.
in Judaism is considered a great teacher,
Right.
just like Muhammad and Buddha were,
Mm.
but no higher, right?
Right.
Just really good teacher. Um, wow, that was interesting. That thread just went, don't you say that, but I want to say that.
Mm. Well,
Hmm.
there might be another way to put it. I'll throw this in, right? To my understanding, and this might help. So, to my understanding, Jesus's divinity didn't wasn't right away.
Thank you. Okay, you gave it back to me.
Yeah.
It's he said things that were basically, hey, could you be nice to each other?
Right.
Stop being a douche, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And it didn't go very well for him in his
Right.
lifetime. And it was a long time afterwards, really,
Yeah.
before this became a good thing. And that happens a lot in people's lifetimes. You look at great artists and what have you as
Mhm.
well. Their flaws become celebrated when they are no longer here.
Right.
And that goes in pretty much any area. Like Leonardo da Vinci had to hide a lot of the stuff that he was working
Hmm.
on because it wouldn't have gone well for him if they'd found it.
Well,
He'd have
yes,
been
especially his anatomy books.
right. And the helicopter that he drew and all
Mm.
these kind of things like that he would have been burnt for witchcraft,
Right.
right? Because he was ahead of his time and he knew that he had to be very careful about that. People are not very advanced when it comes to understanding that just because somebody else accesses things or knows things that
Mm.
you don't, it doesn't make them a threat.
Right.
The twit next to you that's talking about all kinds of drivel, that's a threat because
Yeah.
frankly, it can suck your brain out.
Mm.
But
Makes me think of that line there from what was that? That Adam Sandler movie there where he has to go back to school because his diploma or whatever didn't count. And so he goes through and does all the grades again. And then I think he's at high school level and he gives a presentation and then the principal is like, "We are now dumber for having heard you speak."
there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't nice.
Yeah. But
But
yeah,
that
like
does happen. Yes.
but this happens in real life, right? People kind of they get hit with something that feels good and takes less effort. It
Mhm.
always takes more effort to try to get to the truth of things, to understand the nuance, right? Sometimes it's just easier to sit there and get the dopamine hit of agreeing with someone, you know.
And it's, in behavior analysis, it's called response cost, which is
Mm.
basically how much work you have to put in versus the outcome that you get.
Right,
And when the response cost is higher than the outcome is considered to be by you,
right,
then it's less likely to happen. And so people will go for the easiest, smoothest thing that they can go for, the loudest voice, the one that gives them the easiest life, if you
right.
will. And it's all superficial, right? Because you can agree with somebody who says, hey, I'm going to take away all your access to food and medical care. And you say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And they
Yeah,
pat you on the head and tell you that, oh, there you go. You're being a good
mm,
person, just
yeah.
toe the line kind of thing. You'll be fine. We'll look after you. And none of that makes sense when you add it all together. But in the short term, the response cost is low. It's
Hmm.
very easy to say, oh, yeah, yeah, you're right. In the long term, well, scales shift dramatically, and suddenly the response cost is a hell of a lot more than you bargained for, but it's a little too late now because you're
Yeah.
already in it. So it has to go that way. And that's when the blame game starts, right? People
Hmm.
get distracted by saying, it's your fault, you did that. And when you are at effect, which means everything's done to you and you don't have control over anything, then life's kind of shitty, but you go with the easiest way out, right? When you're at cause, meaning you're responsible,
Hmm.
it's your thing, and you can make it different, that requires a higher response cost. That's more work.
Right.
And in the short term, it looks like, why am I putting my neck out? Why am I trying so hard? Well, because in the end, the idea is that it will be worth it in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But in any case, you acknowledge that you are at cause. You can decide
Yeah.
a lot of what happens to you. I was talking with a kid, 2 days ago, who is teetering on the brink of being booted out of school. And, my explanation to this teenager was, well, you have a choice here, and the control is entirely yours. It's not school's fault if they boot you out at this point. It's not your parents' fault if you get booted out. The only person that you can look at in this scenario is you and what you're choosing to do with your behavior. But the good news is you have a lot of control. You can turn it around. There is time. Not a lot. We are teetering on the brink here. But,
Yeah.
you have an option, right? And he's just staring at me like, what? Aha, you don't get to blame anybody else for this. Nope,
Mm.
not doing it.
Yeah. So
Pause for
listeners,
thought.
yeah. So listeners, hear that. Hear those words because that's where we are.
Hmm.
And especially for those of you who actually listen to this podcast because you're on a spiritual journey or spiritual slash magical journey, there's a lot of power right now. We've been talking
Hmm.
about it all year. There's a lot of power readily available to be worked with. I chose not to use the word use to be worked
And,
with.
and, and that actually speaks to what we were saying at the beginning of this episode, which is understanding the limitations that you accept unnecessarily, right? The lack of self-trust,
Hmm.
the stories from other people about what is and isn't true. You got to really cut through that
Hmm.
jungle and, follow your own path, quite literally.
Yeah.
The word authenticity gets bandied about so much so that I now dislike the word authenticity, which is crazy. But I'm sick of hearing it because it's misused all the time. It's like, be authentically yourself,
Mm.
except as soon as you express an opinion that is different to everybody else's, or if you believe something they don't believe, or, pick a thing, right? You put one foot different to what they anticipate,
Mm.
and suddenly your authenticity is a problem,
Right.
right? So don't get caught up with that crap either. You don't have to prove anything. And I think that's also a very important thing. I'd like you to write that down, put a pin in it somewhere. You do not have to prove anything to anybody.
Right.
It's unnecessary.
This is completely true.
Hmm. We spend way too much time looking at how can I get approval for this? I work with parents to when they're talking to their kids over homework and stuff. I'd like to give you a reframe. Instead of saying, I'm really proud of you. How about you say, wow, great job. You must be really proud of yourself. How does that feel? Right?
Yeah.
And get the kid in touch with themselves, feeling, okay,
Yeah.
I did a good job. Right? Because that will save the child from becoming a perfectionist or somebody who simply gives up before they try because you can't fail if you don't try. And we
True.
have an awful lot of people falling into one of those two directions because they are externally validated. They need somebody else to tell them they're on the right path. If you do that, you are going to be in a freaking minefield of crap. It's not a good way to go at all. It's unreliable in the extreme. Today more so than ever. Or at
Yeah.
least it's more obvious today.
Yeah, well, I mean, the incentive to misinform and be disingenuous is incredible.
Oh yeah. And the comeback, the payback,
Hmm.
if you do that, is minimal,
Right.
right? People talk smack on social media. They say things that they wouldn't dare say to your face. And sometimes these days, people are saying it to somebody's face, and then they run like hell when they get some trouble for it, right? So we've lost that sense of, I'm pushing my luck here. Maybe I shouldn't
Right.
say this, you know? And they don't have a barometer for when is it okay to do this and when is it not.
Yeah.
I have a barometer that I've used for quite some time now, which is I don't say anything about anyone or to anyone that I wouldn't say in front of my kids or that I wouldn't do in front of my kids.
Mhm.
And I have some pretty good standards about what I would and wouldn't do in front of my kids. So, I'm not going to behave badly as a model for them.
Right. Model the behavior. Yeah.
It's, so that's my barometer, right? And when going through a divorce, that was my barometer. I'm
Right.
not going to badmouth anybody because I can. Like, I'm just not going to go there at all because I wouldn't say something like that in front of my kids.
Right.
So I just didn't go there. No matter what was thrown at me, I wouldn't go there because that was my barometer. And I think it's very helpful if you can pick something that you can check in with.
Yeah.
But relying on an external, this person said, no.
Yeah.
Danielle's looking very thoughtful for the people that can't see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the flow of this episode is obvious, right? It's your time to shine, and don't get deceived, kind of a thing. And I'm trying to think of because like what you said made me think, right? Because my advice for new parents whenever they ask me something is like model the behavior you want to see because kids don't care what you're saying. Because once they're old enough to realize you're telling them things, versus what you're doing, like your
Mhm,
words versus your actions, they come to recognize that your actions are what you truly believe and your words aren't what you truly believe. And I feel that a lot of people don't recognize that when they're adults.
mhm,
Like looking at people, listening to them speak versus what they're doing, even though they're speaking a certain way. Because a lot of people, especially politicians, know how to speak to people. That's the whole point of why usually they get elected is because they know how to speak to people, right? And you see it all the time. There's this uh, speech wise, they're so kind, they're so caring, they're so open minded. They believe in giving them the benefit of the doubts, but then when you actually see the policies they enact, or you even see what they actually advocate for, and then you realize this nice speech they gave has nothing to do with what they're actually about. But people
mhm,
elect them for the nice words they use without paying attention to what they do, you know?
mhm.
And it's why, and
Yep.
unfortunately, to bring up Charlie Kirk again, it's why people are like, oh, he's such a good speaker. And it's like, do you not watch his body language? Watch how he reacts when someone shuts him down. Like, I mean, when he was shut, like, but it's not just him. Like, it's politicians, it's other people who debate. It's like, look at how they're reacting versus what they're saying. And yes,
Uh-huh.
there's times where you want to believe your words, right? And but your biases kick in and you're trying to fight them back. That is something that happens, right? Because you're not quite at the level you want to be at, but you speak at the
The,
level you want to be at.
the other thing is bringing neuroscience into it. You've got like up to 10% of your brain is conscious, right? And
Right.
you're thinking about things and you're saying the things that you're thinking, da da da. The the rest, the 90%, is on automatic. It's
Right.
doing the things. And the reason there's a disconnect between the two
Mm.
is because your brain can bullshit with the best of them, whereas your behavior is going to show your true lines, shall we
Yeah.
say. So, I think I can say these things because you're not going to know who I'm talking about. But
Mm.
there's another case where the parents of a particular kiddo tell me, oh, he's really not good at transitions. He can't move from one activity to another. So I watched what they were doing. And I'm like, bloody hell, I wouldn't move from one activity to another either.
Right.
Because, what you're saying is unreasonable. If a kid is deep, deeply involved in something, and then
Right.
you say, okay, you got to stop that now, let's go over here and do this thing, the success rate is likely to be
Hmm.
extremely low, right? And if you were in that place where you were really deeply into something, and then someone came along and for no reason that seems good to you, right? They
Right.
say, oh, you have to stop doing that and come over here now. I mean,
Yeah.
are you likely to say, oh, sure, and go? No, none of us do. So it's interesting that the expectation and the words that are said don't match the reality, the
Yeah.
practice, and don't match what the adult themselves would do. And I find that happens so often because they've forgotten that the kid isn't in your head.
Hmm.
So you have a heads up on what you want them to do now and why, but they don't. So just because you want them to doesn't mean they're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So this is an example of where the conscious brain is telling you one thing, but the unconscious behavior is a whole other level. It's a completely different thing. And that's the thing that kids learn from. It's the thing that adults pay attention to, even
Right.
if they're not conscious of it. And the words kind of get in the way.
Hmm.
The talky part can be misleading.
Yes. Well, that's absolutely it, right? Which is why a lot of my BS detection has nothing to do with the words being told to me. Although sometimes it does, but a lot of times it's just how the words are coming out
Or who
long
it is
before
that's
even,
saying them,
yeah,
right? Because there's that very popular saying of do what I say, not what I do.
yeah.
And that fits in the
It's my
same
dad's favorite.
category. It fits in the same category
Yeah.
as I
Don't
don't
do
want to be
it.
offensive, but
Yeah.
right? Like, no, it's not your get out of jail free
Mm.
card. It doesn't work. No, you can't do that. It's not going to land, and you don't get a sort of free pass for that, right? Like, oh, but I told you not to do what I do.
Yeah.
Nope, nope, that's not. Nope, you don't get that free pass. Does not work.
Yeah. Once me and my siblings got to a certain age, that was like my dad's go-to. Don't do as I do,
Uh-huh.
do as they say. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. See, but how impressed were you with that?
not very.
No, because you see the behavior,
Yeah.
and that tells you everything you need to know. So
Yeah.
I think the big point at the moment is the navigation that we all have to do between believing the conscious crap that we're told
Right.
and really, the thoughts that you have, the ideas that you're thinking, they're all externally sourced. They came from somewhere.
Hmm.
It's not from you purely, right? It's like the virgin birth. You're not having a virgin birth with your thoughts. They came
Right.
from somewhere. So they need to be considered rather than taken as fact. And I think
Yeah.
that's really important, and so many people don't do it. And it's hard to do it all the time, right? There's a high response effort. Oh, is that true? Is that this? Is that, let me think about it. It's a lot of work. And so we're not going to do that all the time. But there are some critical times where I think it's necessary. And so if you're trying
Mm.
to go on a path that's not the one most frequently trodden, which would be magical or spiritual, then you got to be aware that there's a lot of people on those paths that are full of shit too. And sometimes they say stuff that misleads you. And
Mm.
you believe them because you really, really want that to be true, or you really want to have a mentor or something. And it's
Yeah.
like, yes, but they too can be full of shit, then they're
Yeah.
not. they're not some kind of special being, you know. Danielle and I are both very regular people. I was
Yep.
going to say normal, but I kind of think that word's overused as well.
Bite your tongue,
Uh,
woman.
what is the definition of normal? See, there's another thing too.
Yeah,
What are the definitions that people are using? Because the definition of normal, I would argue, is actually a very, very small number of people who fit in the middle of a bell curve.
yeah,
So, in fact, they're the weirdos because they're the minority that
mm,
are in the middle of this bell curve, and everybody else has got something going on,
yeah.
and we're the majority. So, who's normal? Doesn't normal mean the most often?
Well, that's what I'm assuming, right? That's how I look at normal is that there's a certain amount of traits, and the ones that show up most often are normal. Doesn't mean everyone has them, and doesn't mean two normal people are normal the same way.
Right?
I'm shaking my
So,
head when
I
I say that
think,
because I don't, it sounds weird, but
so I think people who fit in the category of normal are actually abnormal because they're the exception, not the rule,
distribution, yeah,
right? So we could go off on that tangent, but the point really is that, when you're stepping out on this path, when you're choosing a direction, you really need to check in, like think human design at this point. You got to check in with what your body knows, not what your brain's telling you, because your brain's full of it. You've been hearing it from all over the place, but your body knows the truth. And you get that gut feeling of, oh, there's something off here. That's not right. No. But we're told as kids not to listen to it. I invite everybody to start listening to that if you haven't already, because that doesn't lie. When you get that feeling of, ooh, yeah, something's not right. Correct. Don't know what it is. You don't have to know what
right,
it is necessarily, but just trust it. And if you're getting oh, yeah, this is good, go there. Because, yeah, that's right. Don't let your brain talk you in and out of things
right. Well, I
because
think
it
there's a
will.
general. What was that you were gonna say?
I just said it will.
Yeah,
Like your brain, your brain is great at logic, right?
right.
Logic is a way of putting one brick in front of the other in an orderly fashion. And you can build a wonderful path and you can end up going straight off the cliff with that wonderful path, right? It's logical, it all follows a
Mm,
sequence, but it wasn't going anywhere useful.
right.
That's what the brain does. The body knows. It just knows stuff. And it's not one of those things
Mm.
that you can write a dissertation and explain shit. It's what you know and go with that.
It's your. Actually, I talked about it in was it the last video I posted or the video before that, and I had basically made the distinction between intuition and conditioned response.
Right.
Because I think we had discussed that, right? It's one thing I had discussed it. There's one thing about where, actually, this was with the client. There's a difference between your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
and I had kind of what I was discussing with them was, okay, there's your intuition, but the reason it's important to know yourself is because you have to be able to make the distinction between, yes, this is my actual intuition versus, last 10 times I did this, I got my ass kicked. So now I'm afraid to do it. And so what feels sort of like an intuition because it's your first reaction that your body throws up at you is like, I don't want to get the
Mm-hmm.
shit kicked out of me again. That's not your intuition. That's a conditioned response. And it can be mistaken, even if you don't know yourself well, that can be mistaken for intuition.
Yes, I would agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, intuition is like it's the present moment. So
Right.
it's not future casting, it's
Mm,
right now. It's not talking about the past, it's right now.
right.
And it's a yes or a no, and you're not getting a second opinion. So,
Right.
it's that knowing. So if you're out and about, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're about to go down a dark alleyway and you see some shadows moving
Mm,
around. What is your body telling you at
mm,
this point? It
right.
should be telling you that's a bad idea. Don't go down there.
Mm,
Right? Now, your brain, if you've been drinking or whatever, might say, yeah,
yeah.
let's go and play. But your intuition is still saying, yeah, no, bad idea, don't do it. And the negative part of the intuition is usually easier to hear because it's the survival instinct,
Right.
right? The positive is just you just have this feeling that yeah, that's okay. I'll go do that thing. I'll just try that, or I'll sure, I'll talk to this person. Let me see what's going on. And it's not something you can explain, and that's a really good indicator as well, because the knowing that you get from conditioned responses, you can
Right.
explain that. I had
Yeah.
my ass handed to me. I'm not doing it again,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, that's pretty logical. You've got that brick in front of brick
Hmm.
pathway again. But logic is not, it's not always your friend. It can lead you in the wrong direction.
Well, and logic needs a basis to start with.
And it will move according to the basis.
To
So
that
if the
basis,
basis
right?
is off,
Because this is a discussion I have with people who are smart but aren't. Uh,
savvy,
well, they're not aided in working with their intelligence. So logic becomes the all important thing. And then a discussion with me is usually, well, you have to have a basis for your logic. Like you have to have for your next steps to be logical, you need to have a goal and then therefore and a basis on which you're founding what is logical and what isn't.
the thing with logic too, though,
Yeah.
is it came from somewhere else. It's somebody else's
Right.
idea. So in the coaching world, for example, you open your inbox in social media, and there
Yeah.
are going to be like 10 people in there saying, "Hey, I've got this free masterclass and it's going to teach you how to yada, yada, yada,"
Yeah.
right? What they're going to do, if you give them your time, is they're going to show you a system that somebody told them works,
Right.
and they want to sell it to you.
Hmm.
They probably haven't tried it themselves because they just want you to have it, right? And pay them for it.
Right.
That the logic that they're using is, well, this person makes money, therefore it must be good, so I'm gonna do it.
Right.
But that person makes money because they're selling it to you. So it's logical, yes, but is it wholesome? Is it accurate? No. No, it isn't.
Mm.
And the thing is, but sort of something like marketing, for example, seeing as I was just talking about that anyway,
Yeah.
the way you would market something isn't going to be the same way I would market it. It
Right.
can't be, because you are a different person. You have a
Hmm.
different energetic flow that requires you show up differently.
Right.
And the problem is when you try and show up the way somebody else said you should. And that's where logic comes in. That's the should on yourself. That's the ought.
Yeah.
That's the, well, if you're going to do magic, it needs to look this way. Well, who died and made you, Lilith? I
Yeah.
don't think so. You don't get to tell
Yeah.
me that. Um, if you want to sell something, you have to sell it this way. Is that it? That's the only way? Like, really? And oh, I made $1 million last month doing it this way. My ass, you did.
Yeah.
Because if you made $1 million, you're not in here trying to talk to me
Right.
to have your thing for like
Mm.
$100 or whatever, right? Like, you got to look at, is this logical? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Do you trust what they're saying? And if you do, you might want to ask yourself why. I mean, I see things like learn to be a human design coach for $7. That's frankly scary.
Mm.
Like, what do you think you're going to get for $7? And what kind of coach are you going to be? Oof, that's really, did any thought go into that at all from anybody? It's a very cynical, get money quick kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? That person's just going to send you probably a PDF with a bunch of bullet notes that say do these things. And they probably don't know human design
Mm.
from Enneagram, right? Like they don't know what they're talking about, but people will buy it and that's what they care about. This is everywhere now. This is everywhere. And because of
Yep.
social media and just people shifting expectations, people can get away with shit like that. I know coaches who've had one experience of something. I saw somebody who's
Mm.
just presented in this big sort of forum,
Mm.
and I know this person. And I'm like, oh my God, seriously? You're getting to sell this and you lost weight once
Mm.
and now you're telling everybody that you have all the answers? This person is not trained in nutrition. This person
Mm.
is not trained in any of this stuff. They lost weight. That's it.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that, you're going
But
to go and pay all your money to that person? Kind of
yeah.
want a little more than that, little bit of background, a little bit of what happens if I do this, they can answer you the question,
Hmm.
or at least they know where to look for an answer. So there's a lot of charlatans, I'm going to say.
Yeah. I had something, but I don't have something. Anyway,
That thread.
yeah, that thread got taken away. So,
It's weird as anything when that happens. You
yeah.
gave the thread back to me earlier when that when
Hmm.
that happened to me. I was just like, no, I was just about to say the thing, and the bloody thread just went, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way my brain wants to work, or my brain, the way it seems to want to work out, no, even that's gone. Everything I'm trying to respond with is being taken away.
Uh-huh. Now, for the listener, if you haven't experienced this yet, it is the weirdest thing because you know you had it and it just went. It's a bit like if you do medicine journey with, the shamanic type practice, and you do the ayahuasca stuff. Um, you can have the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and then suddenly it's disappeared.
Yeah.
Only you never get that thread back. It's just gone. They're kind of like something along those lines. It's just like, whoa, but I knew it, and it's gone. But when you're channeling stuff, it comes. And if you want to say it the wrong way, or if you want to say it at the wrong time, it goes again.
Yeah. Well, in this
At
case,
least
it's
that's
very,
my reading of what
yeah.
happens. I know it disappears at certain times.
Yeah. For me, in this particular case, it feels like someone clamped down on my third eye.
Huh. Now you've had that before.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having a weird time with my third eye lately. Not a bad way, just different that I'm not used
Oh,
to.
just in case anybody's interested
Yeah.
from a previous episode, and I mentioned the wild lucid dreaming that I was having and needing to get a handle
Mm-hmm.
on that. And I mentioned theta healing.
Right.
Okay, I've been using that consistently since then, and okay, we're good. I got a handle on it now. So,
Yeah.
whew, just in case anybody wanted to follow up on that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, because we do mention a lot of stuff on here, and there's some things we do circle back to, but there's a lot of things we don't circle back to.
Yeah, and that just occurred to me now because sometimes something will wake me up and it starts, and I'm like, nope, not doing it,
Mm,
and I do the whole banishing thing, and I can go back to sleep, which is great. But
yeah.
I'm also not getting the uncontrolled lucid dreaming that I was getting that was utterly exhausting. So, yay. Laser healing for the win. I haven't done that for a while, so
Yeah.
I'd kind of forgotten it until
Mm.
my friend pointed it out to me. What's the thing when you learn a lot of different modalities? Some of them kind of
Fade
drop to
away
one
for a bit.
side while you look at the new and shiny.
Yep.
So we're all subject to that too.
I think there's something to this.
Oh, there's definitely something to this. New and shiny stuff is
Mm,
a distraction.
right.
It's utterly distracting, and we often fall prey to it. Actually have a name for that, and it's procrastination.
Procrastination.
Procrastination, because it's not that you're not doing the
Hmm.
thing, it's that you are actively doing something else to
Right.
avoid moving forward. You'll go
Mm,
sideways. And
yep.
I have more than 40 certificates and I've got 4 degrees. I have a
Mm.
fucking black belt in procrastination. I am
Right.
so good at procrastination. I know it when I see it. Um, oh my God, I am the expert on that one. And once I realized, oh yeah, I am working really hard to go sideways here.
Mm,
This is a lot of effort to not go forward. Wow. And the thing is, it looks good. People say, wow, you're still studying. Oh boy,
mm,
you got another certificate. Look at you. Like, what does that mean, really?
yeah.
I love the learning,
Hmm.
but the focus on anything other than moving forward is absolutely a distraction. 100%. I am allowing myself to be distracted, and I'm doing it in a way that gives me approval from other people.
Right.
Very clever, because nobody's going to pull me out of that if they're approving of it.
Yes.
It takes somebody to say, yeah, but that's bullshit. You don't need to do that.
Hmm.
You already know the thing. And then that stops you in your tracks. But not many people will say that.
Yeah. Keeps that reminds me of he doesn't listen to the podcast, but one of my nephews, the one who's autistic, and he likes to use a lot of big words. But when he grew up, right, because he liked to read and all that kind of stuff, right, which is actually pretty common in my family. A lot of people mispronouncing words because they learned them through reading. But anyway,
Hmm.
so he'll use a lot of words, and he always got praised for using these big words and stuff like that. The problem with him is when he started coming over to visiting on my brother's side, us, there would be a lot of so you use that word. You're not completely wrong for using that word. It can be used that way, but it's not normally used that way. So I'd ask him, was like, did no one ever point this out to you before? He's like, no, they were just all excited that I knew the word. And I'm like, all right.
Context.
Yeah.
Context is everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it makes me think about that, right? Because people approve of what you're doing, even though you know, but you still need to be not corrected, but you still need to be kind of, it needs to be brought to your attention that maybe what you're doing isn't the correct way, even if it is impressing people.
But they don't even notice, though. That's the
Yeah.
thing. You are ticking. So procrastination
Hmm.
ticks boxes, right?
Right.
It looks like you're busy because you are. It looks
Right.
like you're learning something because you are. So you're achieving something. You're going for that
Hmm.
certificate. Yes, you are. It ticks all those boxes, absolutely. And what you and everybody around you
Hmm.
misses is what you're not doing while you're doing that. And that's you're
Right.
not going forward because you're
Right.
busy going sideways, especially if you're at a stage of life where you already have a whole load of certificates and stuff. Like, seriously, four degrees. Did it make me smarter? No, but I have great papers. You know, like, it's, and I was halfway through a fifth one. I was doing my doctorate
Hmm.
when I realized, oh, I don't actually want to use this. I'm not doing it for the right reasons. And that was the start of the end of procrastination for me.
Right.
And I quit that, much to the consternation of everybody whose boxes I was ticking, right?
Yeah.
But this is something to bear in mind. Like, you don't have to have a certificate to be able to do magic. You don't have to have
Right.
approval from other people to know that you're on the right path for you.
Right.
And you don't have to do it a certain way. And we've said this many times, but for some reason it keeps coming up. Like,
Mm.
what's right for you can be very different to what everybody else is doing. And it probably is. And that's great. That's what we need, is people doing things their way. So
Right.
that procrastination, watch out for that little sucker. It trips you up.
Yeah. So yes, so you don't need anyone's approval to be you.
Right.
You just need
And
you to be you.
running
Yeah.
sideways only postpones you finding out who that is.
Right. And it's that for the rest of this year, that message has to be. We don't have to drive it home. You, the people receiving this information, have to internalize it.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, if you're going sideways, if you're avoiding the next step forward, well, it's still there. It didn't go
Mhm.
away, and whatever else you think you need in order to take that step, it's only postponing it. You're still going to
Mhm.
need to do it.
Yeah.
So none of us know how long we got on this planet. You might as well start walking forwards.
Right.
As soon as you recognize it, put it down, start going forwards.
Okay. One thing familiar gets to come out now. So it's not in the way I'm thinking of saying it, but one of the efforts I'm making now in my coaching is to not get in my client's way, to work
Mhm.
with who they are versus whatever program I'm using. Kind of like what you
Right.
said earlier, right? With the Lilith thing. Because I was going to say, well, yeah, you have a baseline structure to just refer to, but be ready to deviate when you need to deviate.
Yeah, I mean, I can have a baseline structure. I don't know that I'm even going to put that in place fully
Right.
because I know the direction and that's but how that journey looks, I don't want to try and know that right now because that will
Mhm.
get in the way.
Yeah. Well, because I'm kind of running into that very same thing. Like right now, I'm started to eat like a wizard, but I want to add move like a wizard, right?
Hmm.
All part of the be a wizard experience. I say with a grand sweeping gesture. But you're right. But structure of it, because I know I have to work with the person and their meth and how they respond to things and what they actually need to know to do these things. Like my basic line is, okay, use tarot cards or divination tools just to give you a sense of how to practice, listening to yourself, how energy flows and that. But so that's kind of just the kind of the introduction to get the ball rolling. But I know after a few weeks, it's like, once you start opening stuff up, it's go with whatever the client has or whatever they're
Well, think of a paint palette, right? You can have the primary colors
right.
and you got your black and you got your white.
Hmm.
Now, what you do with those moving forward is going to change everything. So what you blend with what and how
Hmm.
much and in other words, what else comes to the
Right.
table is going to alter dramatically what that looks like. And that's what the other person brings.
Hmm.
And just like if you channel stuff like you and I both do,
Hmm.
I don't think you can make a solid sort
Right.
of this is my structure because you know damn well it's not going to go that way. It's
Yeah.
it just isn't. And so there are some basic things you can do, like season one of this podcast.
Hmm.
You got the fundamentals there.
Hmm.
Yep, these are good things to know. This is cool. This is
Right.
okay. But where you go with that paint palette is
Right.
vastly different depending on where you're coming from and what you want to do with it. And that's so key on the work that either of us are doing, which is
Hmm.
why I can with confidence say I have a year-long Lilith program. I do. I know I do. What does it look like? We will see. And I will be as interested as anybody to see what that looks like. I know the direction I'm going in,
Yeah.
but I don't know the timing or the depth of any particular aspect until we're there and I see what's required. Or
Right.
what's
Well,
required comes forward, right?
yeah. And I was going to say, and because it's a Lilith program, you also have Lilith's input.
Yes. And I feel like there's going to be some Hecate in there as well, because those
Hmm.
two often dance together. So, I already just muddied the waters with, there's two now.
Yeah.
It's primarily Lilith, but Hecate has an influence. What else is going to change between now and the start of December? I don't know. What else is going to change between now and December of 26? I don't know. This is going to be an interesting ride. Like, I'm going to have fun with this. I am available for how it's going to be. And that's
Yes.
that's my structure. There you go. I just gave you the
Yeah.
structure.
And that's especially right now what we're sharing and essentially what we're asking, or if at least the spirits that are working with us are asking. I lost my rest of it.
They're asking something. Yeah,
Well, they're
I'm
asking
just
for people to be open and you know to to be themselves. Like
be available for what it
right,
could be.
yes, be
Because
available for what needs to be.
the thing is, as soon as you start putting parameters on things,
Right.
and I'll get back to boundaries in a second, but as soon
Hmm.
as you start putting parameters on what something's going to look like, you have immediately limited what's possible
Yes.
because you just closed your field. You built some walls and you said, okay, nothing else can come in. Now, that is
Right.
not the same as when we talk about boundaries, where you have a line in the sand of things you will and will not tolerate. That's a whole other thing. That's protecting your sovereignty. Sovereignty. It's protecting your person. It's protecting your space when you're lucid dreaming, for example. You got to have those
Mm.
boundaries. That's not the same.
Right.
Having an open field and being open to possibility, that's literally saying, I'm not capping this. I'm not saying no, and I'm not saying I know what it is. I'm just
Right.
open and I know, I trust that it will come as it needs to. And that's a big piece of when people need to know the how of everything, they don't trust.
Right. Well, that's true.
Because if you trust that what you're working with is going to show up, like when I do these podcasts with you, I just know that something's going to
Mm.
channel when it needs to, and
Yeah.
I have no idea what, where, when, how long, or where it's going to go. I don't know, but I know something will. And that's enough.
Hmm.
That's what I trust in. It's the same thing if you are trying to set something up for yourself and you have this rigid structure, you have just hamstrung yourself with this limitation that is going to just trip you up all the way, especially if you haven't got it properly aligned. And the chances of having a big structure properly aligned are not
Right.
that great because it changes.
Hmm.
It moves, it shifts, and new information comes in, or people bring their energy in, and then it shifts. What they need isn't the same as what you thought they might need. So you have to have that flexibility of just saying, I trust that I have the structure. I trust that it will come as it needs to. And that's what I'm doing.
Right.
That's how this whole podcast's gone so far. Like
Yeah.
not just this episode, but all of it. It's just,
Hmm.
I never know what we're going to be talking about. I
This
just
episode
get
in
there.
particular, since we had nothing, we were
Uh-huh.
literally started at zero, no
Yeah.
inclinations, and then bang, right off the bat.
Uh-huh. Because we both know that something's going to be there. It's just the trick is to let go of needing to know how.
Right.
You don't know how that's going to go. We can't know how it's going to go. And if you get stuck on that, then you're kind of burying your head in the mud and expecting to see clearly.
Yeah. I'm having a little bit of a interesting experience with my third eye here. This
Uh-huh.
I never heard of this kind of thing, and I'm kind of enjoying the moment of the sensation. But it's like it's acting like a sail.
Hmm.
This is the only way I can think to describe it. Like as if the wind comes in and fills the sail, and the sail, whatever that expression is when the sails fill up. That's what it feels like. It feels like there's light coming in, and then my third eye is like acting like a sail, and it's like getting opened up.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm. That might take you somewhere.
I mean, like my ring light is right there, but that's not it. Actually, yeah, you
Yeah,
can see it a bit. But anyway, that's not the point.
that
So
might take you somewhere.
yeah, but
Maybe it needs a little meditation times just so it can be allowed to do its thing.
yeah,
Oh, and for the listener, when I say something like that, like
mm,
meditation time, I don't mean
mm,
you got to sit down, cross your
no,
legs,
right,
put your thumb to finger and say om.
mm,
That might work for you. You might also need to go for a walk
mm-hmm,
or vacuum clean. It's anything that gets you into the zone,
yes,
the place where your brain isn't in charge, you're just on an automatic. That's a form of meditation where insight can drop in.
right.
So it can look like whatever it needs to look like.
That does remind me of the whole thing we've been discussing about what our words mean to us now versus what they meant before, and how does that translate to the audience?
Right. Because meditation, people have an image, right?
Right.
With,
Because when you said meditation, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever I need to do to get in the zone. And I've been
right.
like that for decades now. And so it's like when I say it and people react and I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. You're there. Okay. Got it. I got to bring myself back here, rewind the time in my head to realize, oh, yeah, that's how I used to think about it too. Okay. Got you.
Mhm. And there's, yeah, even within the most traditional of meditations, there's different ways to do it. Yoga is a form of meditation. In Theravada Buddhism, which is the saffron robed monks, they're typically on the lower lying lands like Cambodia, Sri Lanka, that not the mountains, in other words,
Right.
they have a form of meditation called Vipassana, and that can be seated or it can be walking. And one of those is likely to land for you, and the other one probably not, in my experience.
Mm.
One could be a lot easier than the other. And it depends on what you're bringing to the table with that. So even within the traditional form of meditation, there are different ways to do it. You can use mantras or
Yeah.
not, right? You can use the breath. Actually, breath work is amazing. That,
Hmm.
that can be very effective, but not all types of breath work. So again, you got to be open to,
Right.
well, I tried breath work, I didn't like it. Okay, but you haven't tried all of it.
No.
There might be something that's amazing, and the rest isn't for you. So keeping that open to see what's
Yeah.
possible, right?
Again, with the whole theme of this year of know yourself, because yes, how do you keep yourself from wasting decades on trying to figure out something about one subject that applies to you, and then, especially if you're trying to be methodical about it, you know,
Hmm.
starting at A and then going all the way to like, I don't know, 10 times Z. It's like it's a lot of work to do. So you kind of got to know yourself and you got to be able to know what paths you slide into.
Uh-huh.
And otherwise, you're wasting a lot of time.
And linear progression
Mhm.
is by and
Yeah,
large not authentic. It's again, it's that logical path of one brick in front of the other going in a straight line. Linear progression means that you're not allowing anything else in. You
right.
got that rigid structure, that scaffolding,
Hmm.
and by crikey, that scaffolding is going to be all straight lines. But if that's what you're doing, you are missing so much. There's so much else out there that you won't let in. And I think that's got to be landing for somebody because it's coming through very strongly for me that don't stick to the how. The how doesn't matter. Even the what doesn't matter so much. You just know where you know what your point is, right? Like example is me talking about a year-long program with Lilith. Okay, there's my point, right? Now what that looks like is
Hmm.
wildly open to interpretation because I don't know yet. So,
Right.
I have a point, I'm heading to that point. The rest, what that looks like, it could be a plate of spaghetti, it could be hopscotch, it could be any number of things. I don't know.
Yeah. Or you wake up in the morning, you go for a walk, you trip, you fall, you scrape your knee, you look down and you see a rock shaped like a wizard, and that unlocks everything for you.
Okay, that could be one way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
pretty
make
good.
a joke about, I always say, no matter how dark my vocabulary may get, my connection to life is such that even if I was, getting that point, you see the dramatic moments there in movies, and the person's pounding their fist on the ground, and they're like, I don't, and they're like having their moment, and I'm like, if I ever even got to that point, and like I'd be like that, and then I would notice a rock shaped like a wizard, and I go, what the hell is that? And then I would stop, and I would look at the rock, trying to figure out why the rock is shaped like a wizard, and that would like fix everything, and that would realign me. So
Hmm.
I
And
already
things
know
seem
that
to
about
come up.
myself, so I don't worry about my mental health in that sense too much. Because I know
So
something that dumb will fix it.
what you've just
Yeah.
described, though, is a perfect example of not closing off that structure so
Right.
that something can come in and say,
Hmm.
yo, you're taking yourself too seriously. Look over here.
Yeah.
Let me do it's a distraction, yes, but it's not taking you away from anything. It's actually reminding you, hey, you're getting a little too heavy on this
Right.
thing. We're over here. We
Hmm.
moved. We're in this place now. You need to like head this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm always
that's
open for inspiration. So
uh-huh. And that's one of those things
yeah.
that I, the key really that I'm getting tattooed in the back of my
Hmm.
head right now is the whole don't hold too tightly to structure. It's
Right.
allow it to be as it is and then trust that it will be the right way,
Hmm.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
would.
it. I'm on a loop. I think I've said what I've got
Yeah,
because I'm just getting it tattooed in the
right.
back of my head. Um, but I'm not getting anything new.
No, because I just got the thing to hush too, because I was going to say something, but then it was like, no, I think we got this.
Sure.
I think we've hit enough times there about people, stepping up on being themselves because this was the whole year of 2025 and it's coming to an end. 2026 is its own thing with its own challenges, but right now is the time to, start crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and whatever, shoring up your whatever, secure your thing, basically. Secure, get yourself solid, and that's that.
And the solidity from
Mm-hmm.
my side is trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you trust yourself, the rest will work.
Right. The faith you need to have is in yourself.
Mhm.
All right. Once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time.
Until next time.